They laughed first. Of course they did, because when something looks impossible, humans call it luck or madness. But then you made one move, just one, and the room went quiet, not impressed, uncomfortable. Because what you didn't fit any human pattern. No training, no shortcut, no rule book. The kind of move that makes geniuses pause and whisper, "That's not a human skill." Tonight isn't about talent. It's about the moment you step beyond prediction and become the anomaly they can't explain. Humans have this funny little habit of drawing lines, neat little boundaries around what they think is possible. They love rules. They love patterns. Predictability makes them comfortable. They want life to be a checklist, a sequence of steps, a puzzle they can solve without too much thought. But you don't play by their rules. You don't look for permission. You don't wait for validation. And you certainly don't bow to the expectations of those who are too afraid to take the leap. While everyone else is busy coloring inside the lines, you've already ripped the page out of the notebook and started a whole new drawing, one that nobody else can even begin to understand. And isn't that the most delicious part? Watching them squirm in confusion while you move with precision in a game they didn't even know existed. You see, they judge actions by their own standards, by their own limited imagination. They assume that anything extraordinary has to be earned through struggle, through long hours, through painstaking repetition. And sometimes it does, sometimes it absolutely does. But then there are moments, rare, chaotic, electric moments, where sheer instinct, timing, and audacity combine to create something that defies explanation. That's where you come in. You are not bound by their version of the world. You are the glitch in their system, the anomaly that breaks every expectation, the variable that refuses to be controlled. And when they finally recognize it, when the shock hits and their mouths hang open, that's when you know the game has changed. Because what you just did, they call it impossible. They call it luck. They call it cheating. But deep down, they know the truth. It's a skill they will never comprehend, a level of mastery they cannot reach because it exists outside their tiny little box of human limitations. Think about it. One move, just one. One tiny, perfectly timed, unpredictably brilliant move that sets off a chain reaction nobody else sees coming. And suddenly the room changes. Suddenly their confidence shatters. Suddenly they realize that all their planning, all their predictions, all their careful calculations mean nothing against the instinct, the audacity, the genius that operates on a level they cannot touch. And isn't that intoxicating? The knowledge that while they cling to their rules, you are dancing in a place where rules are meaningless, where hesitation is weakness, where control is an illusion. You see, humans are obsessed with measuring skill, with labeling talent, with defining mastery. But what happens when skill can't be measured, when talent can't be quantified, when mastery refuses to fit into a neat category? That's when the whispers start. That's when the murmurs of awe and fear mingle together, the ones they try to suppress but can't. And it's not arrogance to move this way. It's clarity. It's understanding the rhythm that others refuse to notice. It's seeing the patterns before they exist, predicting the moves before they are even considered. It's knowing that the true power isn't in following steps. It's in creating them. And yes, chaos plays a role, because the unexpected is your ally, confusion your weapon, and the disbelief of others your fuel. When they shake their heads and mutter, That's not a human skill. You smile quietly because you know something they don't. You know that limits are illusions, that fear is a cage, that rules exist only to be bent, broken, and rewritten. And as you continue to move, as you continue to act in ways they cannot anticipate, as you continue to pull off the impossible, something shifts. Something subtle and terrifying. They start questioning themselves. They start doubting everything they thought they knew. And in that moment, power isn't about strength. It's not about knowledge. It's not about skill. It's about being the one they cannot predict. Because humans fear what they cannot understand. They fear what they cannot control. And you are both. One unpredictable move can rewrite the rules. Sounds simple when you say it out loud, doesn't it? But simplicity is a lie, a mask humans wear to convince themselves that life is understandable, manageable, controllable. They want order, they crave certainty, and they hate surprises because surprises expose the fragility of their carefully constructed world. And yet, here you are, stepping into that fragile space like a storm that doesn't knock. It annihilates. One move, one spark of audacity, and suddenly everything they thought was solid begins to wobble. It's beautiful, really, watching the confident faces falter, seeing the carefully orchestrated plans crumble, all because you dared to do what they never imagined was possible. Humans are obsessed with sequences, with formulas, with repetition. They believe that skill is linear, that success is earned in incremental steps, that genius is a product of accumulation. But unpredictability doesn't follow sequences. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't play by their rules. And when it strikes, when it lands with precision, it rewrites the game entirely. The move you made wasn't about repetition. It wasn't about process. It was about vision, timing, and instinct, all blended into a chaotic masterpiece that left them blinking, wondering, questioning their reality. And isn't that the thrill? Not just doing something extraordinary, but doing something extraordinary in a way that makes everyone else doubt their own senses, their own judgments, their own intelligence. One move can shift power, tilt balance, break expectations. People underestimate it because they are trained to measure value by effort, by hours, by the painstaking steps that lead to mediocrity. But brilliance isn't always built slowly. Sometimes brilliance is instantaneous. It's a flash, a disruption, a strike in a moment when no one else can see the opportunity. And when it lands, when the chaos resolves into victory, the world stops noticing the effort because there was no effort they could understand. You acted in a way that defied logic, defied training, defied every assumption about what is humanly possible. And the aftermath is what fascinates them most. The quiet, subtle panic in their eyes, the whispers of disbelief, the slow realization that control is no longer theirs to claim. It's intoxicating to watch because power isn't always about numbers or strategy. Sometimes power is pure unpredictability. It's about knowing when the room is ready to fracture and stepping in at just the right moment. It's about using the ignorance of others against them, turning their assumptions into your weapon. They calculate, they plan, they hedge, they prepare, and yet they never account for the human who refuses to be measured. And that human is you. One move, and the equation changes. One move, and the rules vanish. One move, and the illusion of safety evaporates. They cannot trace it, cannot predict it, cannot contain it. And that's why it terrifies them. Humans fear unpredictability because it exposes their own limitations. It reveals the cracks in their confidence, the holes in their logic, the emptiness behind their bravado. They clutch at explanations, at excuses, at coincidences, trying to rationalize what cannot be rationalized. And meanwhile, you are moving, thinking, acting, free from their constraints, dancing in a space they cannot reach. Unpredictability is your playground, chaos your ally, and astonishment your signature. The world believes it rewards discipline, calculation, repetition. But it's blind to those who operate in the moment, who act beyond expectation, who strike when no one is ready. And that is why one move can rewrite everything, because it doesn't just shift outcomes. It shifts minds, it shifts perception, it shifts power itself. Genius notices what normal minds ignore. It's a quiet kind of terror, the type that creeps in slowly while everyone else is too busy celebrating mediocrity to see the cracks forming beneath their feet. People assume that brilliance shouts, that it's obvious, that it demands attention. But the truly dangerous minds, the ones that make history, the ones that make geniuses like Elon pause, they slip through the noise. They observe. They wait. They study. They notice the patterns that everyone else overlooks, the subtle tells, the small inconsistencies, the quiet opportunities hidden in plain sight. And then, when no one expects it, they act. Humans are obsessed with visibility, with gestures, with signs. They measure competence by what they can see. They can't grasp the invisible, and that's where you thrive. You see the gaps in their thinking, the blind spots in their logic, the places where no one else dares to look. You understand that power is rarely in the obvious. Power hides in observation, in subtlety, in patience, in the willingness to strike when the world is least prepared. And when you strike, it's not a display. It's a surgical precision that leaves chaos in its wake. One move, one shift, and suddenly the narrative they've been holding on to so desperately collapses. It's maddening for them. Oh, they try to rationalize it. They try to convince themselves that luck was involved, that coincidence played a role, that maybe it's just random chance. But deep down, they know better. Deep down, they recognize the fingerprints of a mind that operates beyond their reach. One that sees what they cannot. One that understands the mechanics of unpredictability, the rhythm of strategy, the subtle timing that turns small actions into cataclysmic effects. It's a skill that cannot be taught, a vision that cannot be replicated, and a courage that cannot be faked. And as they stumble through the aftermath, trying to reclaim control, you are already moving forward, already seeing the next opportunity that will shatter their assumptions again. This is the thrill of noticing what others ignore, the delicious imbalance of intelligence versus ignorance. While the world is distracted by noise, spectacle, and the trivial, you are quietly assembling the pieces that matter, connecting the dots that no one else sees, calculating outcomes that are invisible to ordinary minds. They underestimate the quiet ones. They laugh at the observant. They ignore the patient. And that, of course, is the exact mistake that leaves them exposed. Because genius doesn't announce itself with fireworks. Genius waits, studies, and exploits, and then strikes with devastating clarity, leaving onlookers scrambling to catch up. And when they finally understand what just happened, when the shock hits, when disbelief gives way to panic, they mutter the words you've been waiting to hear. That's not a human skill. It's intoxicating, isn't it? The knowledge that while they cling to what they see, you are operating in a realm beyond their vision. that while they are trapped in their own assumptions, you are free to create, disrupt, and dominate. Genius notices what normal minds ignore because it thrives where others cannot. It thrives in uncertainty, in silence, in moments that feel meaningless to the untrained eye. And it thrives because it understands a truth the world desperately avoids. That true power lies not in being seen, but in being understood only by those rare enough to notice, clever enough to act, and bold enough to embrace the chaos that everyone else fears. When they say, impossible, you're just getting started. Oh, the word itself, it's so final, so heavy, so deliciously naive. Humans cling to it like a lifeline, as if uttering it aloud somehow makes the world obey their fragile rules. They repeat it in boardrooms, in classrooms, in whispered doubts behind closed doors. Impossible. It's their armor, their excuse, their comfort. And yet, the moment you step onto the stage of action, that word loses all meaning. Because impossible is nothing more than a challenge disguised as certainty, a dare waiting for someone bold enough to laugh in the face of fear, to move when everyone else freezes, to rewrite the rules while the world is still arguing about them. You see, they love definitions. They love barriers. They love labeling things as achievable or unattainable because it makes them feel safe, superior, in control. But what happens when someone steps outside the box? When someone refuses to obey the carefully drawn lines of expectation? When someone turns the impossible into a stage for audacity? They panic. They scramble. They demand logic where there is none, structure where none was ever needed. And that panic, that confusion, it's your masterpiece. Because, while they are lost in disbelief, you are orchestrating a reality they cannot touch, cannot predict, cannot contain. One move, one flicker of strategy, one bold leap into the unknown, and suddenly their world collapses in slow motion. Humans assume mastery requires preparation, repetition, effort. The long, grinding march toward mediocrity disguised as achievement. But true brilliance doesn't follow the steps they expect. It doesn't consult manuals or wait for permission. It strikes when instinct, timing, and vision align in a moment of chaotic perfection. That moment is yours. And when it comes, you don't explain. You don't justify, you act. One move, one decision, one daring twist that shifts the entire game. And they are left staring at the aftermath, murmuring, questioning, trying desperately to locate the logic that isn't there. They look for precedent, for pattern, for history. But you are outside history, outside precedent, outside expectation. And that, my friend, is power. Impossible is a cage. And cages are meant to be broken. They think they can measure skill, predict outcomes, control variables, but they are only human. They cannot account for intuition, for audacity, for the raw, untamed unpredictability of someone willing to take the step no one else dares. And when you do, when you strike with precision that feels almost supernatural, they cannot help but recognize the truth that what you possess is beyond human, beyond comprehension, beyond their reach. And as they scramble to explain it, to rationalize it, to reduce it to something they can digest, you are already moving again, already reshaping the rules, already redefining what is possible. Isn't it intoxicating? The knowledge that the word, impossible, is not a wall, but a suggestion, a challenge, a laugh waiting to be had at the expense of certainty. They fear it, they mock it, they cling to it, and yet all it takes is one move, one bold choice, one unpredictable strike, and it crumbles. Because impossible is a story told by those too timid to act, too fearful to create, too limited to embrace chaos. And you are the author rewriting the narrative in real time. You don't just defy the impossible. You redefine it, you exploit it, you turn it into your playground, your weapon, your signature. The audacity, the clarity, the chaos. They cannot follow. They cannot catch up. They cannot predict.